When I first met Julian, I thought I had found the one. He was charming, funny, and unlike anyone I'd ever dated before. We met while studying abroad in London, me, a journalism student from Kenya, and him, an architecture major from France. From our very first conversation, we clicked instantly. Julian made me feel like I belonged, even thousands of miles away from home. Over time, our relationship blossomed. We traveled together, shared our dreams, and talked about marriage. He often spoke about how excited he was to introduce me to his family back in France. I was nervous, but he assured me that his parents were open-minded, cultured, and would adore me. When the time finally came to visit his hometown near Lyon, I spent weeks preparing, learning more French, choosing the perfect gifts, and even practicing polite phrases. Julian's family was wealthy, and I wanted to make a good impression. Still, deep down, a part of me worried. Would they really accept me? The night of the dinner, I wore a red dress Julian said he loved. His parents, Monsieur and Madame Dubois, welcomed me into their grand home with polite smiles. The place looked like something out of a movie. Chandeliers, marble floors, and portraits of ancestors hanging in gilded frames. At first, everything seemed fine. We exchanged pleasantries in English, and I could feel Julian's pride as he introduced me. But then, as the meal went on, I noticed how his parents began speaking to each other in French, assuming, perhaps, that I didn't understand much. I had told Julian before that my French wasn't great, which was partly true. But what I didn't mention was that I understood it better than I could speak it. I didn't intend to eavesdrop, but as they kept talking, their words grew more pointed. Madame Dubois said softly, "Elle est belle, mais elle n'est pas des nôtres." She's beautiful, but she's not one of us. Monsieur Dubois replied, "Julien is just experimenting. He will come to his senses." My heart skipped a beat. I looked down at my plate, pretending not to notice. They continued, their voices low but clear enough to make my stomach twist. "She could never fit into our world," Madame added. "Our friends would never understand. A girl like her family, her background, it's not suitable." Julian, sitting beside me, smiled as if everything was normal. He had no idea I could understand every word. I forced myself to keep eating, each bite harder to swallow. That night, as dessert was served, their conversation turned even darker. "She'll leave eventually," his father said, "especially when she realizes the kind of life he expects to lead. These people always want something from us. These people." Those words echoed in my mind. I wanted to run, to scream, to confront them. But instead, I smiled and stayed silent, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the rest of the conversation. When the dinner ended, Madame Dubois kissed my cheek and said, "It was lovely meeting you." I smiled back and replied in broken French, pretending I hadn't understood a single thing. But inside, something broke that night. That night I barely slept. Julian lay beside me in his old bedroom, peacefully dreaming, while I stared at the ceiling, replaying his parents' words in my head. Not one of us. These people. She'll leave eventually. How could people who barely knew me judge me so harshly? I had done nothing but love their son. In the morning, Julian noticed I was quieter than usual. He asked if I was okay, and I smiled weakly, saying I just had a headache. I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. Not yet. Over the next few days, I watched everything more closely. The polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes, the subtle glances between his parents whenever I spoke. Julian seemed oblivious, always trying to include me, always kind. But his family's coldness was like a shadow that followed me everywhere. One afternoon, while Julian was out meeting some friends, Madame Dubois invited me for tea. I thought maybe she wanted to make peace, but as soon as we sat down, she said calmly, "You are a lovely girl, but love is not always enough. Life in our world can be complicated." She went on to say that Julian had a responsibility to his family's reputation, and that marrying me would make things difficult for him. She even suggested that perhaps I would be happier with someone from my own background. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "Madame," I said softly, "I love your son." "That's all I know," she smiled sadly. "Yes, but sometimes love must be sacrificed for the greater good." When Julian returned that evening, I tried to act normal, but my heart was breaking inside. That night, as we walked by the lake near his family's home, Julian held my hand and told me how much he loved me, how he wanted to marry me soon. I wanted to say yes, to believe him. But how could I, when I knew what his parents truly thought? I looked into his eyes and asked quietly, "Would you still love me if your family didn't approve?" He hesitated just for a moment. It was enough. After returning to London, I knew things couldn't go on as before. I still loved Julian, but the weight of what I had heard, and his hesitation, stayed with me. I tried to ignore it, but every time he mentioned our future, I thought of his mother's words. "She's not one of us." One evening, I invited Julian over for dinner. I cooked his favorite dish and poured him a glass of wine. When he arrived, he smiled, but I could tell he sensed something was off. "I need to tell you something," I began, my voice trembling. "That night at dinner with your parents, I understood everything they said." His smile vanished. "What?" "You told me you didn't understand French." I lied, I admitted. I didn't plan to listen, but they spoke so freely, as if I wasn't even there. "Julian, they don't see me as someone good enough for you." He rubbed his forehead, frustrated. "My parents can be difficult, but that doesn't change how I feel about you." "But it does, Julian. You hesitated when I asked if you'd love me without their approval." He went silent. Then he said, "I just wanted peace between everyone. I didn't want to choose." Tears filled my eyes. "That's the thing. You shouldn't have to choose. But your family made it clear they never wanted me." We sat there in silence for a long time. Then I stood up, walked over, and kissed his forehead. "I love you, Julian, but I can't marry into a family that sees me as less than human." He tried to stop me, but I walked away. Months later, I received a letter from him. It said he had confronted his parents, that he realized how wrong they were. But by then, it was too late. I had already learned an important truth. Love should never have to hide behind silence. And sometimes, pretending not to understand reveals more than words ever could.